so it was April and I had to fill out taxes. And then also that yellow speeding ticket. And then right below that was a $15 million piece of paper I just signed from Sequoia. And that kind of summarizes just how ridiculous our journey has been. You know, starting at Stanford, doing this while I was at Stanford, and then transitioning this into an actual startup. And I want to share that story with you today. It all began 2 years ago, actually, in a raccoon store. It was my junior year at Stanford. This was fall quarter, and at the time, I was really passionate about, you know, how do you build technology for small business owners. And I sat down with Chloe, the owner of, you know, Chantal Beyond, the raccoon store in Palo Alto at the time, just interviewing her, you know, trying to get feedback on this product prototype we've been working on, and also just learning about.
เอาเหรอไปไว้ก่อนไปกินพวกนี้เจ๊นี่ตัวนี้
you know, what her problems were in general. And it was during this meeting when Chloe first brought up this problem of delivery. You know, I remember she took out this really, really thick booklet, and she showed me pages and pages of delivery orders. And a lot of these orders she had to turn down because there was no way she could have fulfilled them. You know, she had no drivers, and she was the one who ended up having to personally deliver all these orders. And that was a very interesting moment for us. And then we over the course of the next few weeks, we talked to, you know, around another 150, 200 small business owners. And when we brought this idea of delivery, they kept agreeing with us, saying, yeah, this is a really big problem for us. You know, we don't have delivery infrastructure. It's such a huge pain for us. There's not any good solutions out there. And which led us to wonder, you know, delivery is such a common pain. You know, such an obvious thing. Why hasn't anyone solved this before? Like we
ก็ซื้อมากินรีวิวไง
ไม่เอามั้งกินได้ไหม
ถ้าตอนซื้อมามันกินมันนี่มันร้อยแต่นี่มันหลายวันแล้ว
โอเคจ้ะ
ซื้อมาเหมือนทักษิณเนี่ย
เพราะว่ามันกินมัน
ตอนนี้มันก็กินได้ถ้าเอาไปต้มแต่นี่มันไม่ได้ต้มวันนี้ขายได้ตั้ง5-6 อัน
ก็
คลิปคนดู2,000นะขายข้าวคนก็ชอบคนลาวอาจจะสั่งเพราะว่ามัน50 บาทเองได้ตั้งเยอะตอนเราสั่งมันก็ส่งฟรีทุกคน
มันมีประโยชน์นะ
นี่ไอประโยชน์มันมีอยู่แล้วแหละ
must be missing something here. So we thought maybe because people have tried this in the past, right? But they failed because there wasn't consumer demand for this. So we thought, okay, so how can we test this hypothesis? You know, we were just a bunch of college kids at the time. You know, we didn't own trucks or delivery infrastructure or anything like that, right? We can't just spin up a delivery company overnight. So how can we test this assumption we had? So we decided to create a simple experiment with restaurant delivery. We spent about an afternoon just putting together a really quick landing page. And you know, I went on the internet, I found some PDF menus of, you know, restaurants in Palo Alto, stuck it up there, and then had a phone number at the bottom, and which was our personal cell phone number actually. And that was it. We put up the landing page, we called it paloaltodelivery.com, and this is actually what it looked like. You know, super, you know, simple, ugly. Like honestly, we weren't really expecting anything. We just launched it, and all we wanted to see was, you know, would we get phone calls from this? And if we got enough phone calls, then maybe this delivery idea was something we're pursuing. So we put it up there. We weren't really expecting anything, and we were driving back home, and all of a sudden we got a phone call. You know, someone called. They wanted to order Thai food, and we're like, oh wow, this is a real order. Like, you know, we have to do something about it, right? So we were in our cars, and we're like, okay, like we're not doing anything right now. Miles will let's just swing by buy, Siam Royale, pick up some pad thai, and it's delivered to this person, and let's try to learn how this whole delivery thing works. And we did. We delivered to this guy up in Alpine Road, I remember. He told us I was asking him, oh, how did he hear about us? What did he do? He told us he was a scholar. And then he handed me his business card, and it said he was the author of a book called Lead the People. And that was like our first ever delivery, right? It was like the best first delivery / worst delivery. You could have asked for. We couldn't make this stuff up, and yeah, and then the next day we got 2 more phone calls. The day after that we got 5, and then it became 7, and then it became 10, and then soon we started gaining traction on campus with PaloAltoDelivery.com, which was pretty crazy because think about it, right? This was a landing page. You have to look up PDF menus to place your order, and they have to call in. This isn't exactly the most professional looking site, yet people were we kept getting phone calls, we kept getting orders, and that's kind of when we knew we were onto something. When people were willing, like we knew we found a need people wanted when people were willing to put up with all this. So I think another key point to remember is that we launched this in about an hour, right? Like we didn't spend, we didn't have any drivers, we didn't have any algorithms, we didn't spend, we didn't have a back end, we didn't spend 6 months building like a fancy dispatch system. No, we didn't have any of that. We just launched because at the beginning, none of that is necessary, right? At the beginning, it's all about testing your idea, trying to get this thing off the ground, and figuring out whether this was something people even wanted. And it's okay to hack things together at the beginning. At YC, there's a mantra we like to talk about is doing things that don't scale. So at the beginning, we were the delivery drivers. We would go to class, and then after class, we would go deliver food. We were the customer support. Like I sometimes had to take phone calls during lecture. We spent afternoons just going down University Avenue passing out flyers about trying to promote DoorDash. We didn't have any dispatch systems about. We spent afternoons just going down University Avenue passing out flyers about trying to promote DoorDash. We didn't have any dispatch systems, so what we had to do was, we used Square to charge all of our customers. We used Google Docs to keep track of our orders. We used Apple's Find My Friends to keep track of where all of our drivers were. Stuff like that. Just figuring out just hacking together solutions, just trying to get this thing off the ground. In fact, at one point we were growing so fast that Square actually shut our account down because we were under suspicion for money laundering. Think about it, we're getting small chunks of like $15, $20 orders coming in at a rapid pace. And luckily my co-founder Tony worked at Square, so he just emailed some buddies there, and everything was solved. Yeah, and another thing about doing things that don't scale is that it also allows you to become an expert in your business, right? Like driving helped us understand how the whole delivery process worked, and we used that as an opportunity to talk to our customers, talk to our restaurants. We did dispatching, which helped us figure out, how we manually dispatched every drivers, and that helped us figure out, what our driver assignment algorithm should look like. We did customer support ourselves, getting real-time feedback from our customers. I remember, for the first few months when we got started, we would manually email every single one of our new customers, and at the end of every night, and just asking them, oh, how was your first delivery? How did you hear about us? And we would personalize all of these emails, right? Like, if I see someone order chicken skewers from Orange Hummus, I would say, oh, I love Orange Hummus. How were your chicken skewers? How did your first delivery went? Just feedback like that was really valuable, and our customers really appreciated that. And I remember one time, this is during YC, we just came out of a meeting with one of our restaurant partners, and we heard about this ice cream store that just opened up, on University Avenue called Cream, and we wanted to go try it out. And then all of a sudden, our co-founder back at our, office/house texted us saying, "Oh, we need drivers on the road. We got a huge spike in demand." So we debated for maybe 10 seconds, like, should we go get ice cream or should we go deliver? Obviously, we went and delivered, but that kind of became our motivation on scaling, right? Like, if we can scale, then we can go get ice cream next time. So yeah, I think that kind of and now of course we scaled across different cities. Now you have to worry about building out automated solutions and dispatch system and figuring out how do you match demand and supply. And all that fancy technology stuff, but none of it matters at the beginning, because at the beginning it's all about getting this thing off the ground and trying to find product market fit. So just to summarize, so there's three things I would say that I learned from doing DoorDash. First, test your hypothesis. You want to treat your startup ideas like experiments. The second thing is launch fast. We launched in less than an hour with a really simple landing page. And finally, it's okay to do things that don't scale. Doing things that don't scale is one of your biggest competitive advantages when you're starting out. And you can figure out how to scale once you have the demand. And maybe once you've scaled, then you can go get that ice cream. Thanks. Sure.
First customers hear about it.
Yeah, so the question was, how did our first customer hear about us? Our very first one, I have no idea. We just launched PoloToDelivery.com. We didn't do any marketing, so I assumed he just must have typed in Palo Delivery into the web browser. But then after that, we did barely any marketing. I think I sent out like one email to my dorm, and that was about it. It was all through word of mouth, and that kind of just validates just how strong of a need you found, when people just start talking about you and they're willing to put up with all this, terrible user experience, terrible design, and stuff like that.
When you started, it seems so obvious, and you're wondering why no one's done this. What's your answer now, looking back?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I think our very first one, I have no idea. We just launched PoloToDelivery.com. We didn't do any marketing, so I assumed he just must have typed in Palo Delivery into the web browser. But then after that, we did barely any marketing. I think I sent out like one email to my dorm, and that was about it. It was all through word of mouth, and that kind of just validates, just how strong of a need you found, when people just start talking about you and they're willing to put up with all this, terrible user experience, terrible design, and stuff like that.
When you started, it seems so obvious, and you're wondering why no one's done this. What's your answer now, looking back?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I think the biggest thing is mobile. The fact that now everyone has one of those in their pocket, and we kind of saw that trend and thought, what if you could design, a delivery system that was entirely based off mobile, where you didn't have to have any infrastructure or delivery fleets. Instead, you could, instead of hiring drivers full-time, purchasing vehicles, what if you can tap into a more of an on-demand pool of independent contractors and only send orders to them when they have time. So that's kind of the insight we had. Everything was done through mobile. Yeah.
Did you know it was going to be a startup or just making some money?
But yeah, I mean, at the time, we're all really passionate about building technology for small business owners. And And honestly, this delivery thing came out of an experiment, right, with the landing page. Like it was literally an experiment. We weren't expecting anything, and it just took off, and we went with it. And logistics was always something we were really passionate about as well. You know, like logistics, transportation, and it's kind of the perfect fusion of, you know, how do you help small business owners through delivery.
You launched mobile app first or the website, and how long did it take from idea to the first launch?
Yeah, we started with this landing page right here. Took us an hour to launch.
How does DoorDash set up the space built with Workflow Space and Seamless other vendors?
Yeah. Yeah. The question was, how does DoorDash stand out among a very competitive space? I mean, in the beginning, for us, consumer demand has never been the problem, even up until now. So for us, it's just about, you know, finding a need and just focusing on serving that demand. So in the beginning, competition doesn't really matter when you're getting started. Yeah, the question was how long it took for us to incorporate into a company when we went through YC. So we launched in January 2013, and then we did YC that very summer. And when we decided to take this idea through YC, we incorporated. One more. Yeah.
What do you plan to do next, or where do you plan to go with this besides food delivery?
Yeah, the question was where do we plan to go beyond food delivery? For us, when we started DoorDash, it was always, you know, like I said, about, you know, helping small business owners and figuring out, you know, how do you serve this for any local merchant, whether you're a macaroon store, a restaurant, or a furniture shop. That's still our focus. That's like the long-term vision. For now, we're just focused on restaurant delivery as a way to scale. But ultimately, that's where we want to end up in. Thanks. Okay, next is Walker Williams from Teespring. Teespring went to YC. I almost presented that. So it's not like a dumb idea, but now they're getting $100 million of revenue, so very lucky I not. And Walker's going to talk also about the on scale. All right, thank you guys for having me. My name is Walker. I'm the CEO and founder of Teespring. For those of you guys who don't know what Teespring is, we're an e-commerce platform that allows entrepreneurs to launch products and apparel brands without risk, cost, or compromise. Today, the company is about 180 folks, and we ship tens of thousands of products each day. And I want to talk to you about one of the most fundamental advantages you have as a startup. And that's that you're able to do things that don't scale. And I define things that don't scale as things that are sort of fundamentally unsustainable. They will not last. They will not bring in the millionth user. And where they break, it's usually time, but it could be a number of other things. But it's really growth strategies that won't take you to 1 million users. And there's 3 real places I want to focus on today. The first one is finding your first users. The second one is turning those users into champions. And the third one is finding your product and market fit. So finding your first users. The first thing you have to understand is that there is no silver bullet for user acquisition. Everybody, and this includes me when we got started, you look for that dream solution, that pay-per-click campaign that has tremendous ROI, some accelerating partnership that's going to springboard you into the stratosphere, an affiliate agreement, something that solves it for you. But the reality is, for the vast majority of companies, and in fact for every company that I've had the chance to speak to the CEO of, that's just not possible. Those are unicorns, and most of the companies that from the outside look like they've had this dream growth curve, the reality is that those first users were impossibly hard to get. And let me tell you about the story of a ridiculously unsustainable business. So this is Teespring in 2012. When we first launched, the business couldn't have looked worse. It took days of meetings, things. We had to offer free design, days of revisions back and forth. We'd have to launch the product ourselves. We'd have to do the social media, all to sell like 50 shirts for a local nonprofit and generate $1,000 of revenue. Anybody looking in would have said, you guys need to give up. This is a terrible idea. But as time went on, those users start to add up. And, you know, I think something you have to understand is that when you first launch a company, just by virtue of the fact that it's a new product, you're going to be bad at selling it, right? You've got no idea what the pain points of customers really are. You've never sold it before. You don't have any success stories to point to or testimonials. Those first users are always going to be the hardest. And so it's your responsibility as a founder to do whatever it takes to bring in your first users. And, you know, it's going to be different for every company. The common thread that I hear is founders need to spend personal time and effort, a lot of their personal time and effort, to bring those users in themselves. It could mean a number of things, everything from sending 100 emails a day, getting on the phone and just calling as many people as you can, going through a network if you have a network like Stanford or Y Combinator, anything you can do to get that first user. And, you know, I really equate it to pushing a boulder up a hill. And if you think of like a very sort of smooth hill, when you get started, the incline is the steepest and those first inches are the hardest. And over time, as you get farther and farther, the incline steadies out, it gets easier, and hopefully, eventually you reach a point where you're at the top of the hill and the boulder starts to roll on its own. And so those first users, you just cannot focus on ROI in the sense of time. Do not expect to spend an hour and return thousands of dollars. Maybe Stanley is one of those unicorns. That was a pretty incredible story. But for most of us, those first users are going to take a lot of hand-holding, a lot of personal love. And that's okay. That's essential for building a company. And the one sort of caveat of that is that I don't recommend giving away your product for free. And there's plenty of exceptions to this rule. But in general, cutting costs or giving the product away is an unsustainable strategy I wouldn't recommend. You need to make sure that users value your product.